And so I'm really excited to be here with you all today to discuss the EPA Clean Sport program and to hear from our students about what they'd like to see accomplished through this one-time, first-ever, unprecedented funding opportunity. This program was really created with the encouragement and the support of our residents in Wilmington and the LA Harbor area who for too long have been dealing with these impacts. And in 2020, after meeting with a number of frontline residents, community-based organizations, port staff, industry, organized labor, and others, the Congresswoman introduced the Climate Smart Ports Act, which would be dedicated entirely to providing grants for zero-emission port equipment. There have been some other programs, like the Port Infrastructure Development Program, but those funding opportunities were not dedicated solely to zero emissions, and rarely did they actually fund those types of projects. They were more dedicated on like capacity growth. And so again, the bill Climate Smart Ports Act was introduced in 2020, and for the year and a half after, we developed a coalition of support with other members of Congress, particularly those who represented port-adjacent communities, as well as other health, environmental, and workforce development organizations from across the country. And so when it came time to the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, we built up quite a swell and were able to get a model of the Climate Smart Ports Act included in the Inflation Reduction Act, hence the EPA Clean Port program that we're all here to discuss today. I thought Ed and port staff did a great job talking about the program, so I'm not really going to go into any further detail on that. I think you get the picture. The majority of the funding is here to deploy zero emissions equipment and infrastructure. To go with that, there's also funding for workforce development to make sure that those same new jobs that are created can be at the benefit of our community right here in the front line. Particularly, we'd like to see those be prioritized for our residents in Wilmington, really, who have for too long been left out of this process. But of course, we only got here with the community's voice, and as you've heard, the EPA is really stressing that there's community engagement and robust community support put into the port's proposal, and so we need the community's voice in that. And so I'm thankful for those who are joining us here today, and I encourage you to please share your priorities, your concerns, and again, what you'd like to see achieved through this funding opportunity. I would also ask that if you're able to, please spread the word of the upcoming meetings that the Harbor Community Benefit Foundation has scheduled for this afternoon and for tomorrow evening in Wilmington. And in addition, I know the Harbor Community Benefit Foundation is also doing other outreach, looking at external sites in our communities, and so I really wanted to give them a shout out. So if we could please give a round of applause to our Harbor Community Benefit Foundation. Thank you so much, all, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Sean, I appreciate it. And so again, I want to also just really flesh out a little bit about how we're scoping out workforce development, and I want to put Jose on the spot and ask if you could come and sort of outline kind of the three pillars that we're looking at in terms of workforce development, and then we're going to move directly into questions. So I really appreciate you. Yeah.
There's a couple of goals just specifically to the workforce, and a lot of it's creating pathways for our communities to be able to go from understanding what happens in ports, what are the jobs that are available in ports, and how do I, as a community member, get in front of the line, to your point. So we want to create a pathway for training and development for our youth and our community. So part of that goes to engage in as early as the middle schools, get them to understand what's going on, education, everything that happens at the ports, not only from the job perspective, but what do the ports really do? Going into the high schools to see what that looks like for job training and development with either pathways to college, four-year universities, or even training institutes, right, that are equipped to get our students and our community in line with port jobs. So that's one of them. Interwoven with that would be our community engagement. Right? We really want to hear about what does the community see, how does that maneuver, how do they get involved, not only here now, but for the next couple of years as this grant is not only developed, but in place. And then the adjustments need to be made along the way to make sure it serves the community the right way. Right? Looking at it from that lens, Schools are one of our greatest assets. Every school has at least 1,000 kids. That's families that we can touch, that's families that we can share information with, and that's money that can go back into our communities as jobs, right? That is the primary goal. In doing so, also working with them closely to see what are some of these grants, right? Direct grants that could really be useful, that could really help not only from the workforce piece, but sustainability. That's going to be the biggest goal. What happens after this grant is no longer here? Can we create those pathways so they stay in place? So even as the grants are removed, the money is removed, those pathways continue. That is the ultimate goal. We want to be able to create it in such a way where there's stability long-term for these grants. In a nutshell, that's what we're developing, engaging local agencies, however you're doing the work here, right? Where are the gaps? Is there a need there? Touching not only the schools, but also businesses and also the community members at every level, just to get a better sense of what's needed. Because if we're going to design something for the community, it has to be driven by the community. So again, questions?
Well, we're gonna.
Okay.
Use-
So cool.